Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hey, this is Eric Stopper with the Buy Box Experts podcast. Today, I am joined by Richard Baum, managing partner at Consumer Growth Partners, a private equity firm that specializes in helping companies with high growth potential sell or monetize their business. He'll be able to talk to us more about that. He is a Harvard graduate. He studied economics at the University of Michigan, where he graduated magna cum laude. Mr. Baum led 9 initial public offerings and 6 secondary offerings for many retailers. And here's the list. This is crazy. So listen to this. Abercrombie & Fitch, Build-A-Bear Workshop, Cabela's, Gymboree, Lifetime Fitness, Talbots, Urban Outfitters, Yankee Candle Company, and Zale Corporation. Holy smokes. Richard is somebody who looks to the future. He and his partners at Consumer Growth, they work closely with family and founder-owned businesses to implement best practices in ways that maximize value for a future liquidity event. So if you want to eventually sell your business, talk to Richard. Obviously, build your business. We learned from Chris Schipferling that you don't want to try to sell too fast. But he wants to preserve you and your family's future and your company's future. He is a speaker, a thought leader, a hustler. He's a partner and a friend. Richard Baum, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. What a pleasure to be here.
So I have a lot that I want to talk to you about. Now, you graduated from Harvard in 1973, right?
Right. It was actually from Harvard Law School.
From Harvard Law School. That was a crazy year for the world. I'm going to take you back for a minute, right? This was Watergate, right? The 26th Amendment. Cigarette advertisements were banned from TV. I personally also believe that in 1973, the radio was the best thing happening because of Love Train and Stevie Wonder's Superstition. Come Together by the Beatles was released around that time. Must have been amazing. The thing that I want to talk about is the cigarette advertisements being banned from TV. You've been able to watch a lot of these kind of economic advertising type policies evolve over the last couple of decades. And I see similar policies getting enacted on the Amazon platform specifically, among others, like not being able to advertise for adult products, right? If you're flagged by Amazon, you're just not allowed to advertise. And they don't even let people list things like CBD. And this is my question, do you believe that these kinds of laws and policies are good for the market at a macro level? Or do you think that these kinds of restrictions are undue and hurt the economy and hurt these vendors who are trying to get these products into people's hands?
So before I answer that, I just want to make a comment or two, Eric, if that's okay. One, I didn't think you were old enough to remember 1973, but so be it. What's interesting, they say what goes around comes around. So 1973, we had, as you mentioned, we had Watergate, we had the impeachment of Richard Nixon, and we also had cigarette advertising being banned, amongst other things. So here we are, almost 50 years later, and we've got the impeachment of our president. We also have got Juul now being banished from advertising as well, which is kind of the next generation of cigarette advertising. The question that you're asking me is probably more a moral question than a legal question. And as a non-practicing lawyer, of course, I feel eminently qualified to answer a legal question. And what I'll tell you is I think the government has a moral, if not a legal responsibility to quote unquote, protect the population, protect the people. And to the extent that there is scientific evidence that, in this case, Juul is harmful to our health, I think that the government is perfectly okay to pass laws and regulation that forbid the advertising of it and enticing certainly people who are under 21 years of age, which seems to be a large population that the Juul manufacturers are going after.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. I didn't even the impeachment kind of chiasm that we're running into, the fact that happened at the same time as cigarettes being banned. That's amazing. So from the government's perspective, right? They have a responsibility to their consumers to do this. So how, as a company who might be selling something that isn't as nefarious as a jewel, how are they supposed to get their products out there, do you think, in this day and age where Amazon represents anywhere from 40 to 60% of a consumer products market? You know, how do they kind of roll with the punches, so to speak?
Well, look, there's plenty of distribution outlets other than Amazon. I mean, if a company is selling, name the product, and if it happens to be a product that Amazon is, let's say banning from their website for a variety of reasons, there's no reason that they can't go elsewhere to sell their product, whether it's on their own website or sell it through wholesale distribution or through their own retail outlets if it happens to be a product. Sure. So, I mean, if a company is selling a product that Amazon doesn't want to have on the Amazon website, companies have many alternatives for selling their product. They can sell it through independent dealers or independent retailers. They can own their own retail stores, or they can sell it on their own website. So just because Amazon doesn't permit it on the website doesn't mean that there's not other opportunities for a company to sell their products.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And you cited on another podcast that 85% of purchases still happen in brick and mortar. Is that right?
That's correct.
So the people who are kind of doom and gloom saying that retail is getting killed by marketplaces like Amazon, is it just, you just kind of completely disagree with those people?
Well, I don't completely disagree with them. I think, the facts are that, whether it's 80 or 85% of everything that we buy in the country as consumers are still bought in brick and mortar locations. 15 to 20% of purchases are online. I think if you read a lot of the press or you watch too much TV, you will think that it's the other way around, that 80 or 85% of what we buy is actually bought online. That is not the case. What is happening is that Amazon continues to make inroads into a number of different sectors in retail. And among the online competitors, they essentially are taking all the growth. So they are becoming much more powerful. There are certain areas, however, of the American economy that Amazon has not done a good job of penetrating or penetrating at all.
That is a perfect segue into my next question. So on the BDO Private Equity Perspectives podcast, when you talked, you mentioned and you kind of coined this new phrase there, a business that's non-Amazonable. Or in other words, Amazon's not going to be the company that puts this business out of business, regardless of what Amazon does. They've got some quality of longevity mapped into the DNA of their business model. So it kind of protects them from this influence that Amazon has. I kind of want to get some clarity, hear it from your words, and I want to know what makes a company non-Amazonable in 2020.
So let's start with what Amazon is really great at and why do people go to Amazon? I think there are two major reasons. One is price, and the second is convenience. You're pretty much guaranteed if you shop on Amazon that you are going to find the lowest price for just about any product that is sold elsewhere. So if there's another place to buy it, you're almost guaranteed that the Amazon price is going to be pretty close to the lowest price. And secondly, convenience. So as we all know, you can pretty much get next day or 2-day delivery. In some cities, same-day delivery of whatever you're buying on Amazon. It's hard to get more convenient than that. But so that said, I think that there are plenty of other reasons why people shop for products other than price and convenience, and those are the areas that tend to be quote unquote non-Amazonable. Or so I'll give you a couple of examples, big ones. So one would be a company that has its own brands. So you could take any. We do a lot in apparel, so you could take any apparel or footwear company. Coach, for example, would be a good example. So anytime you control your own brand, you decide who you want to sell to or through and who you don't. So if I'm Coach, I may decide I don't want to sell on Amazon. As soon as I sell on Amazon, I kind of lose the customer because Amazon then owns the customer. And it is a way for me to sell product. But, there's all sorts of risks relating to price. And as I said before, owning the customer. So if you've got a number of already established outlets of distribution and you don't feel like you really need to go through Amazon or to Amazon, there's no real need to. Another big area that is non-Amazonable are things that are very bulky and therefore not necessarily convenient. So if I'm buying lumber to build a house or to build anything, chances are I'm not going to buy that from Amazon. I'm probably going to go to Home Depot or Lowe's, or I may even go to my local lumber yard. So things that are big and bulky, equipment, machinery, none of that is, really going to be the purview of Amazon.
Interesting. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So what happens when Home Depot, they start offering pickup in their store, right? Like the Kohl's, like you can return any product to Kohl's, thus making Amazon even more convenient. So if I could order online and then have one of these Amazon delivery drivers in a truck pick up my lumber from Home Depot or even from like an authorized Amazon lumber yard, do you think that shift could happen, therefore making that type of business now Amazonable?
Absolutely. I think probably a really good example of that, Eric, is Amazon got into the food business a few years ago by buying Whole Foods. So they targeted food as a major growth opportunity for them. And food is one of the areas that was probably thought to be quote unquote non-Amazonable, particularly fresh, because fresh you can't just put in a cardboard box and ship it. You've got to have all sorts of, selling it. You have to pack it with dry ice. You have to get it there. There's spoilage factors, and so that hasn't been a particularly easy area for Amazon. So what do? They go out and they buy an entire food chain called Whole Foods, and it gave them an entree into the food business. They're learning an awful lot about how to run a food business. They have had a number of initiatives where they are trying to bring Whole Foods more into the fold of Amazon. I think if you're a Prime customer, you get some sort of a discount at Whole Foods if you kind of show your Amazon card. So there's no reason why Amazon couldn't have its eye on other markets or other sectors. So, for instance, I suppose Amazon has enough money, they can go out and buy anybody they want. They could go buy Home Depot and get into all of that business, including the contractor business. I mean, at some point, it's probably, you got to figure out how profitable the business is and, is the juice worth the squeeze? But
sure,
there's no reason why they couldn't one day decide to get into some of those sectors.
So here's probably even a harder question. You mentioned Coach as one of these brands that can decide whether or not they want to sell on Amazon or not, right? So I did a search for Coach on Amazon, and I see they probably have like 50 or so products up here, but 100% of them are sold by resellers. So these are folks who have diverted some sort of wholesale product onto Amazon, and now they control this channel for Coach, right? Like if someone searches for Coach, the tens of thousands of people who search for Coach on Amazon are finding something that does not look up to Coach's standard, right? We've got a few white background photos. We've got some bullet points. The title's really short, 17 reviews, no enhanced brand content. So if you're Coach, what do you do with this?
So that's a good question, Eric. So I am involved with some other brands that I won't mention because of confidential information, but brands that kind of use Coach to quote unquote clean up the channel. So one of the companies that I work with actually has an arrangement where they do sell some product of their own on Coach, but primarily, Amazon is tasked with getting rid of the resellers, getting rid of the counterfeit items that are on there, getting rid of the fakes. And it looks like, Coach has got, since we're using that as an example, has got a similar problem. It certainly, it does tarnish the Coach brand, but, I don't know how many of those items are real and how many aren't real. And I'm sure Coach has got a very active anti-counterfeiting program where they can go after these resellers. If they somehow are able to enter into a partnership with Amazon, which I know other brands do, it can be a very successful way of policing the channel.
Right. So for those listening who might have no idea what we're talking about, you as a brand can go onto Amazon and you can register your brand with your trademark. And then there's some steps that you can take to essentially own that channel. Some people do Vendor Central. I think that's a total waste of time. Most do Seller Central. They register the brand and they take control of those listings. So yeah, a brand like Coach, I think they should absolutely have a presence on Amazon. I don't think that this is necessarily going to bring Coach down, but I think that it certainly dilutes the quality of their brand, right? And I'm sure that they're concerned about it and probably taking some action. So that leads me to my next question, which is the Amazon only brands, right? Like these kids out of college, or I've talked to 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds who are running businesses on Amazon, but they completely leverage Amazon. It's basically their only vertical. Maybe they have a website. I don't know. But typically it's only Amazon. Would they be considered non-Amazonable because they're kind of riding this wave, or are they at just as much of a risk as everybody else?
Well, I think for those brands, Eric, first of all, they rely almost exclusively, as you're describing it, on Amazon to sell their product, right? So they would not want to be un-Amazonable. They actually, without Amazon selling their product, they might not be in business. So what you're describing is a brand that really has chosen to sell most of their product through or on Amazon. So Amazon, in essence, is kind of, their principal appendage, if you will. And those are brands where, frankly, they're probably not big brands. And since we know that so many searches begin on Amazon, I don't know what the number is. I've heard it's a huge number of brands that actually begin on a huge number of searches that begin on Amazon. That's how you reach your primary audience, through Amazon. And frankly, if you're a young brand, you probably care a lot less about owning the customer than you do about selling product, as you're trying to make money. And owning the customer is more of a downstream opportunity, because I may want to own that customer to sell that customer other products to, or to reach out independently. But if I'm just trying to kind of eke out a living, I want to sell as much product as I can. I want to make as much money as I can. And I kind of figure that into my gross profit margin, knowing that I'm going to pay whatever it is, 15% to Amazon, but I'm reaching millions and millions of potential customers.
So I have a difficult follow-up question. I've heard you say in the past that brands essentially have the opportunity to compete with or join Amazon in one way or another, right? Like I can either sell there or I don't sell there. And then if I'm not selling there, then I'm probably going to lose a little bit of my business to Amazon. And this concept has come up a few times. Specifically, there are some folks who understand, they view Amazon as a marketplace, as a buying ecosystem where certain types of customers congregate to be advertised to. And so this means that in order to be in that ecosystem, you have to pay to play. And so if there are multiple marketplaces, like all the direct storefronts on Instagram and Facebook, and even TikTok, I think has a direct purchase portal now, Google, Walmart, Jet, eBay, Jane, I mean, the list goes on. You can opt out of each of these ecosystems. No problem. You could say, I choose not to sell there. But wouldn't you want to be a part of every single one as a business, right? Regardless of, what type of platform that is. If people are going to buy your products there, wouldn't you want to put them in that ecosystem?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I'm not sure that there is a single answer for it. I think first is, not every platform is appropriate for every brand. So platforms have their own personalities. They have their own customer sets. So if I'm a brand, I may choose to sell on a number of different platforms, but not necessarily all of the platforms. So I don't want to be on a platform that is, for argument's sake, inconsistent with my brand message. If I'm a luxury brand, I want to make sure that the platform that I'm selling on has got, some sort of a luxury aspect to it. I don't want it necessarily to be a platform that's going to be for the mass consumer and not for the luxury consumer. So I think that's an important consideration. For example, if you take a brand like, well-known luxury brand like Tiffany,
Mm-hmm.
Is Tiffany selling on Amazon? I kind of doubt it. You may find Tiffany product, but I would be very surprised if Tiffany has said, we think Amazon is really a great platform for us to sell on.
I'm looking now, and it doesn't look like Tiffany sells there, which makes a lot of sense. And I imagine that the barrier to entry for reselling a Tiffany product is probably pretty high. They're not going around wholesaling diamonds to people.
No, they have very few. I mean, they do have some independent dealers, but not that many.
Also, we're data nerds, right? Like that's our whole thing. So there is a significant portion of the population. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but there's a significant portion of the population that's making over, $150,000 a year. And statistically, most of those people, we're talking 80 to 90% of the people that fall into that income demographic have an Amazon Prime membership. And so I'm wondering, since those are our luxury buyers, right? Those are the luxury people. Wouldn't those people probably go and check Amazon for the products that they're searching for? Or do you think that there is a pretty clear divide between how people shop for luxury products and how people shop on Amazon?
Let me flip that if I could.
Sure.
So people who are making more than $150,000 a year, I know a few of them. I'll take myself as an example, even though I might not include myself in that income category. But we do a lot of shopping on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
but we're doing it for consumables. So we buy all of our consumables on Amazon: toilet paper, dishwasher detergent, washing machine stuff. Anything that is big and bulky that I don't really feel like going and buying at the store, I will buy on Amazon. I know I'm getting a great price, and it's extremely convenient. I don't have to schlep it to my car. It's going to turn up on my doorstep the next day. I know exactly what I'm buying, exactly what I'm getting. I do it every 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm not going to be buying my clothing or any jewelry or really expensive items on Amazon, because that's not what I use Amazon for. So I think it's kind of different strokes for different folks.
I've talked to a couple of jewelry companies on Amazon, and they sell like some pretty significant high-priced items. There's a couple that come to mind. One run by a friend of mine named Sammy, and he can't keep in stock. He is just selling this like moderately high-priced jewelry, and it's just out the door as soon as that sucker lands in an FBA facility. And so my personal, just from what I've seen, it looks like a lot of these luxury brands should probably have a presence on Amazon and control that, but it likely doesn't need to be their main channel, right? I don't know that their conversion rate is going to be any higher. You've mentioned collectible products as this one of these non-Amazonable businesses and brands. So if I have, a collection of shirts or blouses or jumpers or, whatever it is, that is able to help me compete with or against Amazon. Can you kind of help me walk through why collectibles specifically as a market is a good bet against Amazon?
Okay, so you've embedded a number of questions in your last comment.
Yes. Yeah, please. Let's break it down.
Let me dissect them if I can.
Uh-huh.
So first on luxury, I don't mean to say that no luxury products are sold on Amazon, because it's pretty clear that they are.
Sure.
But I do know, for example, that Costco online sells a ton of fine jewelry. And why is that? Because, Costco's model is they work on something like 13% gross margin. So, whatever you're buying from Costco is going to, they're going to be selling it for 13% more than they're paying for it, and you're going to get a really good deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I would ask you, Eric, if you were going to buy an engagement ring for your fiance, would you go and get it at Costco because you got really the best price?
I don't know.
And then, think about how that would start off your potential marriage. Honey, I love you. I got this great deal on an engagement ring at Costco. You did what?
My wife does not know where I got her ring, and that will continue to be the case in perpetuity for the rest of our lives. And so, baby, if you're listening, I did not get your ring at Costco. I also didn't get the ring at Amazon. The fact that I care matters. There is a perceptual consideration that I think people are certainly, that's the working through their minds at the point of purchase or even during their search.
So you think the fact that you got it at Walmart is not really going to bother her?
No, that's exactly what I am saying. I think that, well, if it's a real diamond, right, and it's really nice, maybe not, but I'll still never tell her, right? I think I might be in a subcategory of my own. I wonder, right? Like if you're listening to this, like hit us on Instagram and let me know. First of all, does your wife know where they got their engagement ring? And if you bought it at Costco or Walmart, would you tell her? Because the other side of that is,
how about the third part, which is, would she care?
That's what I wonder. So think about it like this, right? If I bought it at Costco, I'm going to get a better deal than if I went to Tiffany's and I bought it out of the store with the 80% margin that they're looking for, something crazy. I don't know the economics. So I save myself a significant portion of money, and so I can go to Kauai, right? I can go to the Caribbean. I have more money that I can spend on our actual experience. I don't know. I don't know the answer as to whether or not she's going to care more about the place that you bought the ring as opposed to the extras that you were able to include in the experience with the money that you saved from buying your ring from that medium. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so let's leave that to your listeners.
Please, Instagram, everybody, Buy Box Experts. I want to know.
Let me move. I want to move to your next question, which first of all, I just want to clarify a little bit, Eric, because you used the collectibles, and then you also used the term collections.
Collections. Let's make the distinction.
So I want to distinguish, because I think the more important aspect of this is really collections, not collectibles. So collectibles to me are like baseball cards. Those can be sold online provided that they can be authenticated. That's not really what I was addressing when the comment that you were, that you alluded to was really collection. So if I'm an apparel brand, I'm going to have a collection of merchandise that I'm going to be selling, and it's going to be generally coordinated. So if it's a women's apparel brand, there's going to be tops and bottoms. There'll be accessories, and things will be coordinated with the color palettes, style. They work together with each other. Amazon has a really hard time with selling collections of things because their search engines really aren't so great. You can't go in and use a keyword called collections and get anything meaningful. If I'm a woman and I want to buy a sweater, I can type in sweater and I can search for sweater. Chances are I'll get like 1 million options. I don't know exactly what the number is, but if you typed in sweater, see how many choices you get?
I'm only going to get 7 pages because that's how Amazon typically functions, but I've got 70,000 results for sweater, and yeah, it's only 7 pages worth. But there's typically like 100 pages.
Got 70,000 sweaters. Like, what do I do with that? I can go filter until I'm blue in the face, and then I probably will shut off my computer and I just say, let me go to my local Bloomingdale's or Macy's. It's a whole lot easier for me to shop the sweater department than to find a sweater that I need. And then once I find a sweater, now suppose I want to find a pair of pants to go with it. What's my search? Pants?
I think Amazon is. Yeah, I think Amazon's working on this. Have you seen the shop Zac Efron, shop Chris Pratt on Amazon? Have you seen those little tabs?
Yes.
So now what I can do is I see what Chris Pratt's wearing and I'm like, hey, that looks pretty good. I can just click on that and the brands that he's associated with are automatically put into this collection, right? And I know that the sweater goes with the pants, goes with the socks.
Yeah, it happens to be a gigantic collection. So if you're going to put in, who is it, Zach Posen?
There's a bunch of people, yeah. Angelina Jolie, I think, is a really recent one.
So if you put in Angelina Jolie collection or just Angelina Jolie, you are going to get everything that has the name Angelina Jolie associated with it. You're
but then when I click on that actual ad, though, that is her stuff, it is really just the ones that are affiliated with her at that point. I do agree, yes. The search function on Amazon is a mess. It's a beautiful mess. But those new branded pages, I think, are making it so that collections of products are easier to sell on the platform.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with you. I think they're working on solving that problem. But they're not the elegant solution that they are for Tide.
They're not the elegant solution that they are for Tide. I completely agree with that statement. Right. Absolutely. So,
yeah, and if I put in something that's kind of common, like I put in Tide, all of a sudden I'm going to have, probably 25 or 50 sellers of Tide. It's not going to take me very long to figure out I'm a Prime customer, so I'm only going to buy Tide from anyone that's offering Prime shipping.
Sure.
And the pricing is so easy. So if it takes me like literally a minute to find the lowest price with Prime shipping. One click, I'm done. Tide is on its way. Not so with Zac Efron.
Zac Efron, yeah. It's interesting that you bring up Tide too, because I was talking with Greg Mercer at Jungle Scout, and he said that the actual brand, right, like the name Tide, the kind of legacy associated with that, is not as important as it used to be when you're shopping on Amazon. That these smaller brands now have the opportunity to get more of the market share because they're lower price and they're the same amount of convenience as Tide, and they're more open to to making a purchase for that. And so in your mind, a brand like Tide, how are they going to combat all of these little bitty sellers on Amazon? Do they just give up and leave Amazon and choose not to sell on that channel? Because I mean, it's got to be a huge amount of their sales. Or do they double down and make lower cost items or make new lower price brands? What do you think?
Well, I guess first I might challenge whether it's a huge percentage of Tide sales, because
I wonder. Yeah, I have no idea.
they've got gigantic distribution network. They're basically in every single supermarket and drugstore in America. So they have got thousands and thousands of points of distribution, for starters. And frankly, I think it's probably more the problem of the smaller brands than it is Tide's problem. So remember, Tide is the 1,000-pound gorilla, the 800-pound gorilla. People are they're nibbling at Tide. And Tide as a brand has still got an awful lot of brand equity in it. So, the whole thing with private label is everybody knows it's cheaper. Sometimes it's comparable, sometimes it's not comparable. Mm-hmm. Unless it's got the exact ingredients in it, it's probably not comparable. I don't know how easy it is on Amazon to compare ingredients. I mean, you have to kind of get zoom in on the label sometimes to do that. But I frankly, I don't think, Tide is worrying about it, and Tide constantly has to reinvent different formulations of their product. It used to be, when I was growing up, there was just kind of Tide powder. Then it's in liquid form. Now it's in pods.
The delicious pod form.
The dogs and children love to eat. And who knows? So they constantly have to be on the cutting edge of, inventing whatever is next. And they do have other brands. I'm sure P&G does work on other brands. In fact, I was speaking with somebody associated with P&G recently, and they have got something, I'm not sure I'm going to get these numbers right, but they actually have about 100 new ventures or 100 teams that work on developing new products that are internal. They are P&G employees. So, they're really not kind of sitting on their laurels. They are constantly on the cutting edge of inventing new products and developing new products.
Innovate or die. Yeah. I think that's the watchword for everybody. By the way, monthly revenue for Tide products on Amazon, it looks to be a couple $1 million. And this is a low estimate. Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah, it's small potatoes. You know what? It's
a couple $1 million a month of Tide.
Yeah, I wonder how accurate the numbers
rounding.
Are. So yeah, rounding error.
Tide must be in all of its forms a multi-billion-dollar brand.
I'd say so too.
And if they're selling $2 million a month, they're selling $25 million a year.
And so I wonder for these small brands, right?
Like P&G is not even selling it directly; those are all resellers, or Amazon itself.
Yeah, I think
I'm sure Amazon is buying the product, holding the inventory because it turns so rapidly.
They are a vendor central client, yeah. So Amazon actually buys their product from them, and so that means that this estimate is probably very low. But the thing that you said about the 1,000-pound gorilla, I think these small private label brands have a lot of peanuts that they can steal, and that Tide isn't even going to feel it. And so it's, Amazon's great. Like if you're thinking about selling heavy duty laundry detergent, please continue to do so. The market looks pretty good. Now,
that's a word from Eric Stopper.
That's a word from Eric Stopper. That's exactly right. So I want to go back and let's talk about some brands that you know a little bit more about, brands that you have worked with. So if you look on the Consumer Growth website, there are a list of transactions that Richard and his team have taken part in and have shown success for, right? These are deals that are going on right now. I want to talk about VioLife. You invested in them, are investing in them, helped with recap. What's the situation there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about this company? Who are these guys? What's the kind of size and scope, and what do you think that you can do for them?
So VioLife was an investment that we made in the kind of around the 2008, 2009 time frame. And they started out as a let's call it like a toothbrush sanitizer company. You know, these ultraviolet lights that kill all the germs on your toothbrush. So they started out selling those, small size, fairly portable, and they morphed into manufacturing electronic travel toothbrushes that are battery operated and operate at very high speed. So this is like, you know, having your Philips or your Braun or your Oral-B toothbrush that you would have at home on a permanent fixture, but you carry it with you when you're traveling.
Uh-huh.
They're small, they're very easy to transport, and they are inexpensive, and they also are the tube itself is capable of being printed on, so you could have all sorts of logos and artwork. So they're decorative, and their primary way of selling these were on the TV channels, TV shopping through HSN and QVC, more HSN. This was a company that was father and son, founded by the father. And the way we got into it was the father wanted to retire, turn it over to his son, but turnover meant the son needed to buy out his father and didn't have the capital to do it. And one of the things that we do is work with family companies who are in transition and got a backer, a financial sponsor to work with us to buy the company. And they expanded into some other products and beauty products. And we actually exited it, around 2013 or 2014.
Okay, so this is a company that you were helping with the recapitalization for, so that the son could buy out the father so that he could continue to run the business and not have to worry about this kind of like sleeping equity.
Yep.
Did you look at the market for their products? Were you really involved in helping them develop strategies, or was it kind of purely for this recap process?
It was primarily the recap, but we always are very involved in our companies kind of post-transaction. So things that are related to strategy and board work and stuff like that, we were very involved with.
Now, for them, are they a good fit for Amazon, and are they non-Amazonable?
Well, they'd want to be on Amazon. Again, this is a low-price product. I think we were talking about low-price products, so, you know, under $25. You really care less about owning the customer. You want to sell as many as you can. So, you know, they care. As a company, somebody like BioLife would, you know, care a lot less about whether they were un-Amazonable or not, because they want to be able to sell on Amazon.
Sure, and it looks like they're here, so shameless plug, even though Richard's not involved with them anymore. BioLife, New Stripe, Slim Sonic Toothbrush, here they are.
It's Slim Sonics.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to reach out to these guys. I also want to talk about Wild Things Gear. Now, this is an older deal. You invested in them back in 1999, right?
Wild Things, no. It was kind of the mid-2000s.
Mid-2000s, okay. I got another story behind these guys. They sell this, what seems to be super high-quality, luxury-priced camo gear,
Yep.
And they are not on Amazon.
Right. So this is this company has a very interesting history. It was founded by a very famous French mountain climber, probably about 30 years ago. A woman who comes from a family of professional skiers and professional mountain climbers and instructors. She came to the U.S. and she was started out manufacturing very high-end climbing gear for her friends. And because she manufactured locally, meaning in the U.S., she eventually found her way to supplying the military, U.S. Military, armed forces, where there's a requirement for anything that's manufactured at least for certain parts of the armed forces and certain items need to be manufactured in America. So kind of gave her an advantage. We invested in the company because we saw the opportunity for Wild Things to become a fairly large consumer brand. So at the time, they really, the business was mostly military sales, not much consumer. And, we kind of envisioned an ad which would show, an Army Ranger and a professional mountain climber standing on top of some mountain peak.
Oh, genius.
With the tagline saying, if it's good enough for them.
Right on.
So these are people that really have the customer's very high technical requirements. Unfortunately, this is actually, not a great success story for us because the military business is a very lumpy business in terms of its sales and also very competitive. So it's hard to really count on consistent cash flow. And we never really were able to get the consumer business to a place that we wanted to. We did do some very interesting customization work where consumers could kind of build their own jacket, which is a really, really cool thing where you could pick the colors, you could pick the zippers, you could pick the pockets and where you wanted them. So it was a lot of fun to build a jacket. But eventually we exited the business and we sold it to a firm that really had a number of different businesses that were selling to the military. So it was a perfect fit for them and a perfect exit.
That sounds like a success as far as I'm concerned, right? Like you failed pretty fast and then you got to a point where it made sense for the business.
Yeah.
How do you get into selling your products to the military? What's like the first step that someone should take for anyone interested in that's listening?
It's really hard tell you, it's really hard to sell it directly to the military. There are a number of organizations and distributors whose business is to represent various companies, brands and otherwise, who want to sell to the military. So you really need to kind of partner with one of these firms that they know exactly what the process is, which is very complicated. They know exactly who you need to go to, all the various steps, because there's a lot of, with selling anything to the government, there's just tons of hoops that you have to hop through in order to get there.
I'll let the listeners reach out to you specifically on your website. Go and talk to Richard. He can probably connect you with the right people. Now I have a final kind of double layered question for you. You, on most of your publications and the interfaces that you have with folks in your industry as a thought leader, is you talk about the future of retail, of e-tail, brick and mortar, of Amazon. You have given your thoughts on a lot of these fronts. Your firm, you target these high growth potential companies. You identify them, you help them for the sale of their company. One of the questions that I have is, what makes a good high growth firm that you would be interested in? And the second one is, if you were to start a company that would be attractive to a firm like yours that could make them a ton of money at an exit, what are some of the first things that you do? What markets do you target? Go ahead and give me your thoughts.
So perhaps the easiest way for me to answer the first part of that question is to just tell you what our investment criteria are for when we're,
sure,
when we're to either buy or invest in a company. So first of all, we focus exclusively on companies that are in retail, where we are channel agnostic. So we'll do bricks and mortar, we'll do online businesses, we'll do businesses that operate in multiple channels. And then the other area is what we call non-perishable branded consumer products. So we tend to steer clear of supermarkets and we steer clear of food and beverage and supermarkets and drugstores. and we do that for a couple of specific reasons. One is we find that, at least with food and beverage, many of the potentially high growth food and beverage companies, they all have the same strategy. And the strategy is, I hope Coke or Pepsi buys me before they buy one of my competitors. Because the real key to those businesses are distribution. We think having distribution may be more important than the product itself. And so we don't like those kinds of businesses where you're having to make big bets in marketing. Our investment criteria are pretty simple. So number one, we feel like it's got to be a very defensible niche. Again, we are kind of category agnostic, if you will. But the question that we always ask is there another competitor out there, either current or potential, who could put us out of business if they wanted to? If the answer is yes, we steer clear. If the answer is no, we're probably interested in learning more about it. Secondly, it's got to have a decent level of profitability. So we're not venture capital investors. We don't invest in companies that are what are called pre-revenue companies. They've got to already be in business, generally have $2 or $3 million of profit, and the opportunity in terms of growth for that to be many times where they currently are. Number three is there has to be a good management team. Probably the single most important component of any business is how good is the manager that you're investing with or behind. And we don't require businesses to have necessarily a complete management team, but there needs to be a really solid core of management that is passionate about the business. And then number four is the business has to have viable exit opportunities that we know of when we get into the business. So we generally are avoiding investing in franchisees or licensees, and that's because their exit opportunities and options are very limited. So if I'm a franchisee, say I'm a McDonald's franchisee, I only have really two exit options. I can sell my business back to McDonald's, the franchisor, or I can somehow find the next dumbest franchisee to buy my business. But I don't really have many options.
Okay.
And those are our investment criteria, frankly. They're pretty broad, but we like to drill down a lot in due diligence and learn as much as we can about a business.
And it sounds like those things are pretty consistent variables for a healthy business at any point in time, right? I'm not going to get smashed by a competitor. I have a really nice liquidation event in my future that's not going to be affected by anybody else, and I actually own the business. I think those are excellent criteria just for anybody starting a business. So anyone listening, right, like get into something that fits these criteria. Not only will you be attractive to Richard Baum and his partners, but you'll be attractive to the market in general. Now, kind of a more overarching question, Richard. And
let me
go ahead.
Let me just augment a little bit, Eric, and that is we don't invest in turnarounds. So what are the reasons? We find that companies that have generally a low level of profitability that is not consistent is kind of too close to zero in terms of profitability. We have found it very difficult, in fact, impossible to raise money for companies or raise money to buy companies that are losing money. There's a lot of institutional investors that just aren't interested in investing in companies that are losing money and therefore are viewed as turnarounds. We kind of like to say, even though we're growth investors, that somewhere in our portfolio there is a turnaround. We just don't know which one it is.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I kind of want to roll out the red carpet for you, and just for people who are interested in the future of retail. Give us your thoughts, right? Like, where are we headed in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I wish I was really good at crystal ball gazing, because if I were, I wouldn't have to work for a living. But I'll give you some of my best thoughts. It's pretty clear. So all the channels of distribution, the main channels are still going to be around. That means bricks and mortar stores, online. Catalog has almost gone away. It's also very obvious that the U.S. is a country that we're overstored. We've got way too many stores. We've got way too much square footage for what we really need going forward. And so we're going to start seeing more malls go dark. Malls are generally classified into 3 or 4 categories: A, B, C's, and D's. Really depending on what the tenant mix is and how much business they do per square foot. The C's and D's are the ones that are in real trouble. They generally do not have great anchors. They'll have anchors like Sears and JCPenney, both of whom are very troubled companies. And as those anchors go dark, sometimes those malls go dark and they may get repurposed and not necessarily into retail. I do think that online is going to continue to grow. There are already some categories where online accounts for more than 50% of the sales. I think consumer electronics is probably one of those categories. But there are other categories that I think are going to become much more important to the online sellers, and food is one of the big ones, as we talked earlier about Amazon. I think that, you're seeing customers are caring more and more about sustainability, not a topic we spent a lot of time on, but particularly Gen Z customers and millennials care a lot about, what's the mission of the company, kind of what are the morals of the company, do they use sustainable ingredients? Are they thinking about taking care of the planet? Where are they sourcing their product from? Where are they sourcing the fabric from, etc.? So these are all becoming much more important as well.
Okay. We tend to get into the future here on this podcast, but I think that's a very pragmatic look at what the future of e-commerce will hold for us. Thank you so much, Richard. For anybody listening, consumergrowth.com, they have a contact button. There's a couple of different places where they have a contact button. These guys just want to talk to you. They want to help your business. Richard is great to deal with, very responsive. Is there anywhere else where I should send people, Richard, to come and talk with you?
No, I think if they if they reach out to us, I'm happy to give my email address is on our website. Our website is www.consumergrowth.com. So you can reach out either on our website, through an email. Our phone numbers are listed there as well, myself or my partner, Liz Dunn. So please feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in a liquidity event for your business, whether it's today or in the future. We're happy to work with you if you want to be able to raise capital today, or if you're interested in our strategic advisory services, where we work with companies to get them ready for a liquidity event, and happy to talk to anyone who kind of fits our investment criteria and fills the bill.
Perfect. Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great. Thank you, Eric. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.